Welcome to Fly on the Wall podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sonksen, CEO and founder of Church Boom. Here you get to sit in on a live coaching session as I coach pastors through the ministry challenges we all face. If you find this podcast helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Today we're talking with my good friend from Illinois, T.W. Norman. Such a great pastor and great church. Love what God is doing. And we're talking about how do you know when it's time to hire someone or restructure? And what does that look like in the church? And how do you restructure your staff to be more effective and to grow more as a church and as a team? So we're going to be checking out that conversation in just a moment. But before we do, I encourage you to check out churchboom.org. There's something we started recently called coaching certification. You can check it out on the website. If you've ever thought about being a coach, you wanted to coach other pastors, go check that out, churchboom.org. And check out the coaching certification. We are certifying coaches. We just started it a while back, and it is just doing absolutely outstanding. I know you will love it. So make sure you check that out. Let's jump into the conversation with my good friend TW. How can I serve you today? What's on your mind?
Yeah, this is good, man. This is a timely conversation. I was just thinking about what I wanted to talk about, and I wrote a few questions down here. I'm also coaching a cohort through Church Boom right now, and which has been great. Just for me, I think facilitating a cohort has just been absolutely amazing. And I think if there's any pastors listening that are looking for something that will add value to what they are doing, man, I just cannot encourage them enough to get plugged in that way. But in the first couple of chapters, we talk about the 6 cycles of a church. And ultimately, it should be the church's goal to stay in a place of increase. And, and Chris, I think that that sounds really good, but there has to be practical things that churches can do to do that. So if you were going to give the top 3 things that churches can do to stay in increase, and I think that's the goal. Once we get to increase, how do we stay there? So if you can give it 3 practical things that we could walk into.
That's a great question. In the 6 kind of cycle phases of a church, the ultimate phase everybody wants to get to is increase, where you're living in increase. I don't know if it's realistic to live there every year, all the time, forever, because I do think that there's a reality that things happen, and I don't know if you can live there in increase forever. I think that, you can go in increase for 3 or 4 years, and then sometimes there's a different season. But to answer the question of living in increase, there's some practical things. First of all, I'm going to talk, I think I'd approach it more of why I think people get out of increase.
Okay.
So I think that's maybe an easier way to talk about it. One is I think the leader has to stay ahead of the bell curve. So the bell curve is, it's that whole thing of it goes up and then once, it starts to go down. I think a leader has to stay ahead to know what's coming up. Okay, if we're running 500 people and we used to run 300, now we're 5 and it seems like we're growing. Okay, they need to be looking, what do I need to change? What do I need to fix? How do I need to change? What do I need to adjust in my schedule? Whatever it is that their mountain they're climbing, what do I need to do? I think typically they keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over, and then during increase, and they're feeling like everything's going great, but they're not realizing, hey, to go up to this level means things have to change. Means you've got to look down the road and say, we're going to restructure the staff. We're going to restructure how I spend my time. We're going to restructure what I focus on. We're going to restructure, how we do leadership or whatever. You have to look ahead. And I don't know if often I feel like a pastor who may have experience from going from 3 to 5 and thinking, I'm okay, now next stop is 700, but they're not making any adjustments. And they wonder, oh my gosh, why am I plateauing? We were so much in increase, we're plateauing. The reason you're plateauing is because you're not readjusting of what it would look like to get to 700 or to 800. And what needs to change? What needs to change in you? What needs to change in the church? What needs to change in the leadership? How you develop leaders? That would be one. That would be one major reason why I think that they don't get where pastors don't stay ahead of the bell curve.
Okay.
Secondly, and close to it, is they don't adjust their structure. As increase continues to happen, the leader has to change things and stay ahead. And we talked a little bit about it already, but I would say the leader stay ahead of the bell curve. I would say the structure has to change. So it would be like me and you. If you and I owned, I don't know, we live in New York, and and you and I own, I don't know, some pizza place in New York or whatever, and it's going really, really well, and we're like, man, someone infuses us with a couple $1 million, and we're like, we're going to open up 9 more restaurants. Well, however we ran it with 1 is way different than we have to run it with 10.
Yeah, that's
completely different. So not only does the leader has to stay ahead of the bell curve on a lot of things. The one thing that has to be looked at is absolutely has to be looked at is structure. Is looking at, man, who's answering to who? What are the lines of authority? Mm-hmm. How does this look? Because the guy that is the lead pastor that's got 5 people answering to him, he all of a sudden has 15 people answering to him, and he thinks he's being effective.
Right.
And you can't do that. You
Yeah.
got to change how you're going to do that. I would say that is a second thing. The third thing is, and this is you said the top 3, and this is off the top of my head, is when you're growing, if I drew a circle like this, and I think you and I talked about this one time, when you're growing, it's like grow, 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 grow. What happens is we end up turning those arrows inwardly. And I know a lot of people think, oh, it's just being inward focused. That's not what I'm saying. It's not being inward focused, which is a real popular term. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is as pastors, we move from being proactive to being protective.
That's right. That's true.
So we're going to grow. We're going to develop. We're going to take risks. We're going to buy another building. We're going to open up a feeding center that feeds people. We're going to open up a youth center, whatever. We're going to reach our city, and we're going to do multi-site, whatever they're going to do. They're going for it. They're going for it. That's proactive. Mm-hmm. And what happens is once you have something to lose, we get out of increase because we move to being protective. And that's true. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't have the tough conversation with that person because they're a big giver. I can't remove that person because from ministry because they're related to 25 other people in the church. And now we have something to lose. And,
Start being
it's
afraid of taking the risks that got us there.
Yep. 100%. We get afraid of taking the risks that got us there because we are now protecting what we have rather than being proactive. So I would say those 3 things: the bell curve, the structure, and moving from being proactive to being protective. I think those are some of the issues that I see of why we move out of increase and we kind of fall back into maybe merry-go-round or one of those other areas that are mentioned in the teaching there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
that's so helpful. So practical. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I have another one for you that's kind of real world, right where I am right now. Because that's what I'm doing. I'm being selfish while I'm on here. I'm just asking questions that are going to help me. So I'm in this place. I know that we need to add at least 1 staff position. I've been looking at it as an assimilation pastor, connections pastor, kind of helping, just getting people locked in quick, and so. But I'm also realizing that I have a staff member on my current team. She's highly, highly, highly administrative. Currently, she's serving more of an executive director type of role. While she's really good at that, but she also is extremely passionate and very, very good at this assimilation piece. And so I had a conversation with her the other day just about where her heart is, like what fuels her the most. Is it the exec side that she's really good at, or is it this assimilation piece and connecting with people and helping us move people through our process, to get towards our purpose. And,
Right.
And she's come back to me and she really enjoys both pieces. But I think she's leaning more towards this assimilation role. But my question is, at what point, how do you filter through whether you need a new hire or a or do you restructure your current staff to fill the need or to fit the need that you're looking for?
That's a great question. I think first of all, I think whenever if you ever lose a staff member, and I know that's not the case here, but we're talking about structuring staff, and so I think it's worth addressing. Is I always tell people, hey, if you lose a staff member, okay, and someone says, hey, I lost my youth pastor guy that was helping me, my assistant youth pastor or whatever, like, I don't know, whatever. And someone comes to you and says, I lost this person. Here's what I always say. Before you replace, you have to repitch. Tell me why you really need him or her. So just in a hiring thing, don't ever just quickly, and I know that's not what you're asking, but I think it's worth saying. Don't quickly rehire. Whenever you're moving around staff and it's like, oh, we lost so-and-so. Well, now we just need this. Two things. One is you might not need that. You might need something else that could, like, hey, I don't need a worship leader. I need someone to oversee the entire worship department, or I don't need this. Actually, this would be better, But one thing, especially in a growing organization, I would say before you replace, you have to repitch. In other words, let's say I'm the boss and you were working for me, and you're like, look, I lost my so-and-so, and I got to go hire someone. We don't just say, okay, we'll go find someone. We would say, well, if we're going to replace them, you're going to have to repitch why they're so important. Okay. And I think that's a great exercise to evaluate that. And again, I know that's not specifically what you asked, but I think we're in that hiring kind of conversation. Mm-hmm. If I'm hearing you correct, it's how do you know, and I want to make sure I'm understanding your part, how do you know when you need to make the next hire? Is that what you're specifically asking, or where they need to go?
Well, my question is, how do I filter through whether I need a new hire or a restructure of my current staff? Because I could try and find someone to fit this role for the assimilation pastor, or I could move a current employee into this role as an assimilation director.
Got it.
And so, that's if that helps.
If I had no, it does help, and so I wanted to say that earlier because I think there's so much value in the difference between replace and repitch.
I totally agree.
You gotta you just gotta be thinking that way for the future as you continue to grow, because your church is growing. And but the one thing that I would always encourage you to do is before you hire, reevaluate. So can we get this done with the people we have? Yeah. Can this be restructured in a better way? I think when you grow, you start adding people, and then you realize that's where the fat comes, because you keep adding people and thinking, what does he do? What does she do? Why did we hire this person? Like, wouldn't it have been better this? I think it is always better to reevaluate who you have on the team, and is there a structure that makes sense? That's why I think the repitching is so important. I think it could work on this side as well. So if I was looking at you, and I would say, okay, let's look at all the players on the field. What is the best thing? Who's doing what? Who's our best player? Is this really an important role, or could we move that role over here? What's a better way to do it that's economical? I'm thinking you got to look at your team, and you got to say, I would look at the team before I hired anybody and say, is there a way to get this job done at a high level with the current team that we have? Yeah. If the answer is no, we're at a point we need to hire, then we're at a point we need to hire. But I don't know if there's not like some evaluation thing that I'm telling you to do, as much as before anything, you've got to restructure and evaluate restructuring and saying, is there a better way of doing this? Is there the right players on the team? Can I do something different here that would still get me the same result? The other thing is always be keeping in the back of your mind, when I do make a hire, is this a hire that's just a need, or is this a hire that's going to actually grow our organization?
Right.
because if you have someone that grows the organization, that's not an expenditure, that's an investment.
Yes.
And you have to know the difference on that as well. But to answer the question, there's not like, here's 5 things you need to ask yourself. I don't have that. What I do is I look at it with the top 2 or 3 people, with my coaches, and I look at it and go, I'm about to hire. What do you think? Do you think I need to restructure, or is it time to actually hire? But I always put restructuring first.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Here's just a quick follow-up. So what I'm hearing you say is there needs to be within the lead role, the exec roles, there has to be a continual evaluation of what's needed, what are we trying to accomplish, and is our current staffing fulfilling that? And if not, can we restructure? It's okay to restructure the current staff to meet the needs or to see if it fits.
Yes, 100% it is. And I don't think you just start moving all people's positions around all over the place, but
Right.
that's not what I'm saying. But in the restructure, especially when you go multi-site and you've got 5 campuses, I think it's always good to restructure, because you end up realizing like, do we really need that position? What if we move that guy over here? I mean, how much value is that really adding? And the bigger you get, I think the more often you have to look at it. Because all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, we went from 10 employees to 25 employees, and what are 2 or 3 of these people even doing? And what if they did this instead? So I always would say, and again, you might get done looking at the structure and saying, nope, we need to hire someone. Well, that's fine too.
Sure.
But what's first is evaluation. What do we need to do? What do we really need to look? Who do we really need? On the church boom side of my life, I've got kind of a 3 or 4 worlds going on. But in the church boom side of my life, we had a couple guys step down, I don't know, 8, 9 months ago, a year ago, something like that. And I stopped and I said, well, wait a minute, let me think this through. So I started evaluating. I was like, well, maybe we don't need that anymore. Maybe we need this instead. And what if we put this person over here? And what if we... And it was a time to truly I do it every single time. First step is evaluate. When I either feel that there's someone that needs to be hired, or there's someone maybe that's stepped off the team. Whether I'm about to hire someone or there's someone stepping off the team, either way, I'm evaluating.
Yeah.
Are we currently set up the best way we can be?
Yeah.
Because I think structures tend to drift.
No, I agree. And I think that, what you experience is anytime there's growth, right? You said it, there's things that need to be addressed. There's things that need to be pastored. There's things that need to be administrated. But if your structure that you have currently within your staffing doesn't change, there's going to be things that go without. And so I think just what you're saying is so important, that we have to continually evaluate the things that need to be covered thoroughly. So yeah, that's a lot of wisdom. That's good stuff.
Yeah, well, good, man. Yeah, good. Well, I hope that helps.
No, I think it definitely does. It's good. It kind of helps even me, because like when I had this conversation with my current staff member, I was like, man, this is I felt like it was kind of out of left field, but it's telling me that it's a good conversation to have, and it's a good thought process.
Well, and
to be going through.
Yeah, and you said the word assimilation. I have a lot to say about what someone functions in assimilation and what their role should be, but having someone that looks to think, how do we get people from community to crowd to core? How do we get more people here and then engage them at a quicker level? I'm becoming more and more convinced that it is one of our top 3 or 4 first hires before it's not number 8. I think we always go worship, youth, children, small group, something else, and then assimilation. I'm like, if engagement wins over attendance, and that's how we grow, then, and that, above anything else, the assimilation person probably should be creating the greatest amount of growth and economics. That's where I think we should be pouring our fuel. Find someone that crushes it in moving people from community crowd to core, because in the end, they'll pay for themselves and lots of other people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
They
that's
will.
good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I have one more for you if you
Yes,
have
sir.
more
Yeah,
minutes.
of
Okay.
course.
This one's really it's something we hear about a lot. It's talked about quite often. You go to a conference anywhere, and certainly this will be mentioned. But I'm interested in hearing from you. Talk about the importance of rest for the pastor's soul and some really practical ways that can be accomplished even during highly intensive seasons.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have said on this podcast probably 15 times, you never add hours, you can only trade them. So looking for more hours as a pastor as your church grows is not going to happen. You have to trade them. That's one thing. Secondly, I don't think I'm going to say anything that any other pastor wouldn't say, and that is if you do not build into the rhythm of your life the day off or the time with the wife or the time with the kids or whatever, if you do not build that into the rhythm, it'll always get lost. I love what Andy Stanley said. I heard him say one time years ago. He says, you got to cheat the church. If you're going to cheat anybody, cheat the church, but do not cheat your family.
Wow.
And I think that's a great way of looking at it. We'll end up putting 55, 60 hours into the church at the sacrifice of our family.
Yeah.
And so the Andy Stanley says it the other way. I'd rather you cheat the church than cheat your family. And I think we have to model that. Obviously some staff members can take that way the other way. Be like, I'm only gonna be at work 1 hour a week because I love my family. Like, obviously there's a line there somewhere, but I think the principle's there. You have an entrepreneur spirit. You're a go-getter. You're a hard worker. Your issue is never going to be time in the ministry, working hard, growing the church. That's never going to be the issue. Mm-hmm. I know you enough to know you're going to have to cheat the church. Mm-hmm. You're a guy that's going to have to say, my family's going to have to come. I'm going to have to put it first. And I always tell pastors, man, you're a priest to your home first before you're a priest to the church, or a pastor to the church. You're a pastor to your home first. And I think that I don't think there's anything magical. I don't have some cool formula and a really cool one-liner. I just say if you don't build it into your church and you don't build or into your life and you don't cheat the church, you're going to end up hurting the family. One thing I used to say years ago, I wrote in one of my books that success outside the home never compensates for failure within it.
Boy, that's true.
And so don't think, hey, I got this great success out here. It doesn't compensate for the failure within the home. And I think you have to create the right balance. I'd rather tame a wild horse than raise a dead one. So I'd rather have a staff member, I got to tell, dude, you go home, spend time with your wife. I don't want to crack the whip on the other side. That drives me nuts. But for you're a hard worker. There's no doubt about it. So I think that as the church grows, you have a large church, it's getting bigger, and it's going to continue to get bigger, and we're going to continue to impact more people through the church and as we work together and all that. But you're going to have to balance that out. And the thing is, don't wait for someone to tell you. Don't let it get that far. Don't let it get that far that your kids have to say something. Don't let it get that far that your wife has to say something. Don't let it get that far that a mentor, coach has to say something or whatever. Manage it, because sometimes when it gets so far that someone has to say something, some damage has probably already been done.
Yeah, you're right. My wife would be giving you a standing ovation right now.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. That's good. Well, man, I hope this was helpful today, bro.
It always is, my friend. Every time I get to talk to you, I come away feeling better, knowing more, and I appreciate you very much.
Yeah, appreciate you, buddy. Tell the family I said hello, man, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good. Bless you.
What a great conversation, and what a great pastor T.W. Norman is. I just love that guy so much. Want to remind you again to check out churchboom.org and check out coaching certification. We launched that a while back. If you've ever thought about, man, I want to coach pastors and develop pastors, this is something for you to check out. So go to churchboom.org and check out our coaching certification. We'll see you next time.